You're listening to Radio West Fife's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Radio West Fife 1. This is the Knockhill preview for September 2011 that was originally broadcasted on the Friday Night Lounge 2nd of September 2011. Right, okay, it's 6:30, and every month on the Friday Night Lounge we look at what's going to happen at Scotland's premier motorsport track, Knockhill Racing Circuit, and it looks to be an interesting September, and particularly this weekend, because a highlight in any motorsports fan's calendar is happening this weekend. The British Touring Cars will be taking place at Knockhill, and to talk about this and all the other events that are happening in September, we've got just the man to speak about it. Knockhill FM's lead commentator, Garry Stagg. Garry, welcome back to Radio West Fife.
Thank you very much indeed, and a very good evening to you and to all your listeners. It's great to come on the air and be able to talk to you guys, and also well, this week has been incredible. It's been so hectic because, as you just said, this weekend it's the Dunlop MSA British Touring Car Championship, it's the Scottish Round, and really tension is pretty high. Matt Jackson leading the championship, but our very own Gordon Shedden just 8 points behind him with 50 points up for grabs this weekend, and then Gordon's Team Dynamics Honda teammate just 2 points behind Gordon, and that's Matt Neal, of course. And then that well-known star of stage, screen and radio, the one and only Jason Plato, is fourth in the championships. He's 20 points adrift, but at the last meeting at Snetterton he was 40 points behind, so he made 20 up, so he is a force to be reckoned with. It'll be very interesting because, of course, the Hondas are turbocharged cars. The Silverline Chevrolet that Jason Plato's driving is a normally aspirated car. Which will suit best around the narrow twists and turns of Knockhill Circuit is going to be hard to tell. The Honda, the turbo cars have the disadvantage perhaps of a bit more weight over the front end. They've got less engine braking available, but on the other hand they can get the power planted in a straight line. So for Jason Plato it's all going to be about qualifying well and being at the front of the grid. For Gordon Shedden the same, and so the whole weekend promises to be extremely exciting. There's a massive supporting programme as well, including the Celtic Speed Scottish Mini Cooper Cup and the Scottish Classic Sports and Saloons.
Excellent.
And Classic Cars are providing us with some awesome entertainment this year. In fact, they have been for the last 2 or 3 years, because we've got things like Porsches and Morgans. They're in different classes of car, but we've got old Mark 1 Escorts absolutely showing them the way around. Fantastic racing, absolutely door-handle stuff. The Minis, of course, renowned for the fact that, well, now here's an interesting little link that came to my head.
Oh, really?
Is on Sunday night at the Carnegie Hall, the Average White Band are playing. Their first hit single in the UK was called Pick Up the Pieces, and sometimes after the mayhem of a Mini Cooper race, we think that would be really the song that should be played.
Quite coincidental.
Yeah, sadly, one of the drivers, in fact, there were 27 entries at the start of today, and after some free practice this afternoon, sadly, there's only 26, because Kenny McLeod, who's a leading light in the series, rolled his car pretty severely, and he's okay, he's walked away from it a bit shaken, but the car's going to need a lot of straightening out, and that's a shame, because, of course, this weekend, as well as being a brilliant showcase for Scottish racing in front of a very, very large crowd, is also going to be a point-scoring round for both the Classics and the Mini Coopers, and that means Kenny, of course, is losing points in the championship. However, he will be back next Saturday, because next Saturday we've got the Scottish Motor Racing Club Saturday meeting, and that'll be on the 10th, which means that hopefully by then you'll have got the bits straightened out and the Mini Coopers will be back in earnest again.
Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just coming back briefly to the British Touring Cars for a quick minute. You did mention there was a bit of a divide between turbo and normally aspirated engines. Now, I haven't heard that since the late 80s in Formula One. So give us an idea for those who, like you, not like you and myself, who know the real difference, the huge difference between the turbos and non-turbos in terms of power.
Well, it really does they give you a massive amount of power, depending, of course, on the level that you set the boost at. It's always a balancing act in motorsport, whatever you do, because the more power you put in, the stronger the components that get that power to the road have to be, and if they're too strong, they're too heavy, and so the advantage gets lost, and so on. For the totally technically uninitiated, I'll try not to bore you, but basically the exhaust gases drive a fan, and that fan blows the fuel mix harder into the engine, hence turbocharge. It's a supercharger, but it's driven by the exhaust. And that allows you to create a lot more power in the car. But as we've just been discussing, the disadvantage is that, for example, engine braking, you know, fine in your ordinary road car, you lift your foot off the throttle, the thing slows down quite substantially. And that is a great help, particularly on a racing circuit, and particularly on a tight circuit like Knockhill, because just to talk you through, you get off the start line, you accelerate as hard as you possibly can up to, say, at Curves, which is the first corner, a right-hander, then you drop down the hill, the road sweeps to the left at Leslie's, and then you've got an almost 90-degree right-hand turn at the bottom of the hill, and you've got to get that right, but you've got to scrub off a massive speed when you get there. Now, in an ordinary car, of course, you shift down, a normally aspirated car, you shift down through the gearbox, you lift your foot off the clutch, the engine slows the car down, you've got your foot hard on that brake, and then you let the brake off and turn into the corner and accelerate out of it. In a turbocharged car, that engine braking just isn't there. With a result, you're asking a lot more of your brakes. Now, that's okay, because these are racing cars and they're designed to have massive brakes that will stop them.
Of course.
But when you're doing a 35-lap race, towards the end of it, you get that thing called brake fade. And for those of you who did physics at school, you'll know that you can't create or destroy energy. All you can do is change its form.
Yes.
What you do with the brakes is you stand on the brakes, the speed, the forward motion, that energy is converted into heat by the brake disc as the pads grip on it. Now, if it gets too hot, the heat ain't got nowhere to go.
Exactly.
So if you're really pounding and hammering your brakes and wearing out the pads and possibly damaging the discs as well, then you ain't going to be able to get stopped towards the end of the race, and that means that you're going to have to go more slowly so you can get round the corner. So the skill really is for the driver to be able to make all those judgments and balance his act and use the power when he can and not use the power when he doesn't need to, conserve and save his brakes. And of course, tyres is the other big thing. These guys are running on slick tyres, massive amounts of grip, but they haven't got to go off either. So it's very, very similar in some ways to the strategies that you have to employ in Formula One. The differences are no pit stops, no refueling, none of that nonsense. It's just flat-out racing from start to finish. And what I really love about the Dunlop MSA British Touring Cars Championship is that they look like the kind of cars that you would drive to work.
Yeah.
They're not, I promise you. No. And if you do drive them to work like that, you are going to get arrested.
Yes.
But having said all of that, you know, it's something you can directly relate to, and for me, this is one of the motorsport high points of the year. In a way, it's the nearest thing we're going to get to a Grand Prix in Scotland, because we just haven't got the room to build a Formula One circuit or the budget. And I don't think the nation will ever have the budget to do that.
No, I don't think they wouldn't. But
unless they stop building trams, of course. Did I say that?
That's another political hot potato we could talk about. But
we could, but we better not.
But British touring cars, for those who are not familiar with motorsport, really promote close contact and close racing, to be honest.
Well, yes, close racing, certainly. I mean, it is a non-contact sport. But, you know, we all know, as we've heard some people saying, one of the things they miss about the sport is you gain a yard here and a couple of meters there and a little bit more somewhere else. Forgive me mixing my measurements.
That's okay.
And then you get right up on somebody and you're maybe scraping a bit of bodywork as you're squeezing past. Now, that's not supposed to happen, but it does. And if it doesn't cause an accident and it's not deemed to be dangerous, then you'll probably get away with it. One of the things that people aren't going to get away with this year is corner cutting.
All right.
It's been quite a big bone of contention for a number of years. And one of the things that many of the organising officials tried was using things called floppies. Now, you'll see them on motorways. Those things they stick in the cat's eyes, and if you hit them, they just flop over and come back up. When the road works and so on. They were fitting those on the apexes of the corner.
Oh yeah.
And if you hit the floppies, then you were penalised. And it could be anything from a 5-second or 10-second penalty to the loss of. It's usually a time penalty, with the result that you think you won the race, and then you get back to the podium and discover you're actually fifth because you've been penalised 10 seconds.
Sounds like a Formula One race at times, I suppose.
It led to a lot of people being very disappointed and shouting and ending up in the headmaster's study. But it didn't work. That's the point. People still cut the corners, and if they got away with it, they were pleased. So what the FIA, the Fédération Internationale d'Automobile, the governing body of world motorsport, has done is approved a thing which we refer to blithely as the sausage or hot dog curb. And basically, as you come into a corner at the apex, you've got what we call the rumble strip, which is the curb, the painted curb that you see on all racetracks, and then behind it, you've got this concrete sausage. And if you hit that, you're really going to hurt the car. It may cause you'll certainly lose a lot of speed. You'll lose direction. You'll generally be in a mess. But most likely, you may derange the car and have to stop racing. As a result, pinpoint accuracy is absolutely essential now. There ain't no cheekiness and cutting the corner and trying to straighten out the chicane and all of that stuff. The guys are going to have to be absolutely pinpoint accurate. The thing about it is it's the same for everybody, but it stops the cheats. So a good thing. And talking to some of the drivers, I had the privilege of talking to both Jason Plato and Gordon Shedden about the sausage curbs this evening, and they both agreed that, yes, they really love flying through and, just whacking a bit off the corner and doing that, but at the same time they are aware of the need for it, both for safety and for fair competition, and they're actually quite looking forward, because tomorrow, remember, will be the first time that these guys have driven this circuit. Since those curbs were installed.
All right.
I mean, Gordon Shedden is a local man, but he never races here. He only gets to come back once a year with the touring cars.
All right.
So, as a result, tomorrow is going to be the first time he's driven this turbocharged car on this circuit in the shape it's in.
Now, obviously, if we like what we see with the support races, some of the support races, we can also see them, as you just mentioned earlier, about the Scottish Motor Racing Club Championships that are happening next weekend.
That's right, Saturday the 10th. And once a year, the SMRC have a Saturday meeting instead of a Sunday meeting. So they're here next Saturday. And, of course, that'll be Formula Ford, which is entry-level open-wheel racing. There'll be Scottish sports and saloon cars, which sometimes provide us with quite spectacular things like 800 horsepower Ford Focuses, if you can imagine such a thing. Always an interesting one, because, of course, the thing about all that power, the powertrain just ain't designed to take it.
Yes.
As a result, the guys can use it, but use it judiciously, and then they have to back off and drive sensibly for a bit. So there's that part of the action. Legends, of course, which are the little 4/5 scale copies of American coupes and sedans from the 30s and 40s. That's the shape of them. They're single seat inside because, of course, they're small scale, and driven by a 1250cc Yamaha FJ 1250 motorcycle engine. Very, very fast, short wheelbase, quite wide in respect of the length, with quite hard compound tyres, so more power than grip, which is what motor racing should be about. Huge excitement with Legends. And then, of course, there's the Mini Coopers and the Scottish Classic Sports and Saloons that we've just mentioned. I think that's everybody.
I think that's,
Have I forgotten anyone?
No, I don't think you've forgotten anyone. No, I'm just looking at my screen just now, but I think that's pretty much everyone. Now, obviously, we have that as well, but if you have your own modified car and you want to take it out and Knockhill, the Knockhill track, you can do that on the 11th of September, I believe.
Yes, indeed. And it doesn't have to be modified. Streetcar Scotland and the Hot Hatch Car Track Day. Basically, Streetcar Scotland is your opportunity to bring along any kind of modified car you have. Or indeed unmodified, just one that you polish a lot. If you're a car enthusiast, if you're a petrol head, then this is a place to be. Quite a few of the clubs and the cruise clubs and these people will be here with their cars. There'll be loads of Subarus and Mitsubishi Evos and so on, and so a lot of very, very nice cars, and there are awards given for, things like the best engine bay, the best interior, the best prepared, the best modified car of the show, best in-car entertainment system, all of that. And usually we do a Driver of the Day award as well. But on the track, you don't have to, if you don't want to take your pride and joy that you've just spent hours and hours polishing out onto a racetrack and risk perhaps giving a bit of a ding somewhere.
Yes.
Not that people do that very
of course
often,
not.
but it can happen. Then it's so long as your car is either road legal, MOT'd and safe, and we do give it a safety inspection, or there are people who actually have cars that are specials just for using on track days. And those guys have to get a certificate of track worthiness from us, which we do at the start of every season. We run people through, and then normal safety checks afterwards. So you can trailer a car here. What we don't allow on hot hatch days is race cars. Occasionally there are odd exceptions to that rule, but by and large it's not meant for race drivers to come along and get some free testing. So we don't let them. Cheap testing.
Oh, cheap testing. Very, very careful in the selection process. Speaking of racing, the week after that, the 18th of September, now, this has not been on television for years, and some people may think this sport is just long faded into the distance, but it's actually alive and very well, which is the British Rallycross Championship.
Very much so, yeah. And Rallycross, of course, is brilliant fun because it is a combination of tarmac and loose surface roads. And what happens at Knockhill is you leave the start line, you go into, say, at Kerr's, the first corner. As you drop down the hill, where you would veer to the left at Leslie's, you make a 90-degree right turn onto shale.
Oh, yes.
And it's altogether different. And then you go through a series of S's and jumps and bumps and pop back out onto the racetrack just on the hairpin approach. They don't actually use the hairpin. They then make a right turn and go across what we call the hairpin loop, the cut-off, and then another 90-degree right and back up onto the straight. Now, I once had the privilege of being driven around the Rallycross circuit.
Oh, yes.
How long ago it was is a guy called Mark Renison was European champion. It was his car, and it was a Ford Sierra RS 500.
All right, so we're talking quite a few years back, yes.
It was I'm quite an old gentleman,
I see.
And Mark sort of calmly said to me, it's quite a long straight here, so we fitted the highest transfer box we could manage, because a four-wheel drive car, of course. Highest ratio transfer box we could manage, but it's still only pulling about 140 miles an hour.
140?
Oh, thanks very much, yes, okay. And so, of course, we hit the first corner, turn into Sayat, go down the hill, and then it's massive braking, and then a right-hand turn. And at that time, the edge of the track, for some reason, all those years ago, there was a sort of great big corrugated iron wall, which just filled the entire windscreen. And it was at that point that I thought to myself, it's going to be all right because he's got a race to do this afternoon and he wants to go home for his tea as much as I do, so it'll be okay, relax. But there was a partial vacuum on my seat. But we came through it, and it was absolutely fantastic. And, of course, you get broadside action. And, again, 600, 700 horsepower cars with four-wheel drive storming along, loads of dust and clouds of shale and stones. And it's very, very spectacular, brilliant fun, great to watch. And, of course, Rallycross grew out of, would you believe, the 1967 foot-and-mouth epidemic.
Oh, is this because there wasn't the RAC rally because of the outbreak? Yes. Yeah,
you couldn't go rallying because of the danger of spreading the infection. So all the sort of countryside pursuits were stopped, and that included rally driving. And somebody said, well, hang on, we could just close it into a race circuit. If we could hold it on the circuit and make up a stage so the guys go tarmac and loose, that would be kind of equivalent of driving on the roads and through the forests. So why don't we do that? And from that, the sport of Rallycross was born. And it's still with us. And indeed, in the last foot-and-mouth outbreak, a few years back, was it the turn of the century, again, it sort of gave Rallycross a bit of a shot in the arm because a lot of people who couldn't drive their rally cars anywhere suddenly found a sport they could use them in. So from that point of view, it is extremely exciting, brilliant fun. It's a little bit different because you get small heats of sort of half a dozen cars going out together, but it really is very, very spectacular indeed. And watching the cars as they come leaping off the end of the Rallycross circuit in the clouds of gravel and everything else, down onto the tarmac, and then if it's a little bit wet and greasy, it's brilliant because these guys have got this 90-degree turn to make, and if they get it wrong, they're on the grass, and as we know, the friction coefficient of damp grass is roughly the same as a wet bar of soap, so it's just amazing fun, really, really good to watch, and that is coming up to us, as you said, on the 18th of September.
And finally, just as we're about to run out of time, tell us a bit more about the club bike racing that's on the 25th of September.
Well, Knockhill Motorsports Club has been born this year, and what the guys have done really is put together some very innovative ways of racing motorcycles in terms of the way the meetings are run, and it's extremely efficient, and it's down to the fact that the officials, like the officials of any motorcycle club, are all enthusiasts, but because they also work here at the circuit, they have a massive amount of experience, and they have applied that experience to running the races as efficiently as possible and as flexibly as possible, so that even when there are incidents, they're still able to get them cleared up and perhaps say, right, the race where there was the accident is now going to be put back. You guys can go back to the paddock and have a race. Get the next lot out, sort out the mess from the previous one and bring it out later. So by just swapping the running order around, meetings run much more efficiently. It's quite amazing actually, because Knockhill has an incredible reputation for its customer relations. We get an awful lot of feedback from our customers, and most of the people who come to us have come by word of mouth recommendation to somebody else. And these guys apply that same manner and thought process to the way they treat the racers, the riders at race meetings. And that makes a huge difference, because we still have to haul people up into the headmaster's study if they've been bad.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sometimes it's a racing incident and sometimes it isn't. But when that happens, it's done in a way that leaves the rider knowing that he's been a bad boy and he's taken his punishment or whatever, but that he's still, part of the gang and in the game. So altogether, I found this year that it's been quite a revelation, an eye-opener, the professional way in which those race meetings have been run. But the main thing, of course, for me as a motorcyclist myself, now I constantly tell people that so far as racing motorcycle is concerned, I have absolutely no talent whatsoever.
Okay.
And that's why I talk about it. And I'm quite happy to admit that. I enjoy my road riding, and I rode within my limits, and that is my motorcycle, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's great fun. And I should say last week that I had the privilege of being given some lessons in off-road riding by the Dakar Supremo Simon Pavey.
Oh, right.
And I have to say that I embarrassed myself enormously and fell on the mud, and on one occasion succeeded in doing it sufficiently that I kind of wimped out of doing the rest of it. But it was huge fun, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do it again. But this time what I'm going to do is, rather than a sort of very much foreshortened course, which was really meant for people who maybe had a little bit of experience off-road, and I've never done it before, I'm going to go down to Wales and do the thing properly with Simon and really enjoy it. But back to motorcycle racing, we are going to see guys like Bruce Burney, who is a defending Scottish Superbike champion, out there on the BMW S1000RR. Now remember, this is a road bike that you can get out of the box, and it's got 200 mile an hour capability. You ain't going to ride it or use it on the roads, but you are going to come and use it on track days, or you're going to race it. And the guys that race these bikes are phenomenal.
Excellent.
So we're going to see some fantastic two-wheel action. And that, as we said, is on the 25th of September, the last motorcycle race meeting of the year.
I see.
And I can hardly wait, except that when it's over, what am I going to do until next April?
Exactly. a long wait until the next season, right?
It certainly is.
We're running out of time just now.
I know.
But,
very grateful to you.
So just give us the website address and how to get in contact with the racing circuits if we want to see any of this.
Just log on to knockhill.com. You guys down in Dunfermline should be able to pick up and listen to the commentary from the two touring car commentators, Alan Hyde and Ian Titchmarsh, and myself in amongst it as well, and indeed Robert Johnston, our SMRC commentator, who will be doing the Scottish races. You'll be able to hear that on 87.7, but just log on to knockhill.com and you can see the full events calendar, everything that's going on, and find out about the other opportunities that there are, because, you know, we're open, it's not a them and us or anything silly like that. Knockhill is Scotland's national motorsport centre, and if you want to come and drive on the track, you can. So just check out the website and see what you can come and do.
Excellent. Okay, so we're running out of time just now, but Garry, thank you very much for coming on to preview the Knockhill events for us for September.
You're more than welcome, and as I always say at the end of these sessions, to everybody who's listening, get well soon. Get well soon, exactly. Right, thank you very much. That was Garry Stagg, Knockhill FM's lead commentator, speaking to us from Knockhill Racing Circuit about what's coming up at Scotland's premier motorsport circuit, including the British Touring Cars this weekend. And now an added bonus to the Knockhill September preview. We have Garry Stagg with Gordon Shedden talking to Shane Lynch from Boyzone during the British Drifting Championship that happened at the end of August. This is courtesy of Knockhill FM.
Gordon Shedden, who is a top touring car driver with Team Honda in the Dunlop MSA British Touring Cars Championships, and with him is another man also at the top of his game in motorsport, Shane Lynch, in the Maxis British Drifting Championships, driving with Team Jap Speed. Gordon, we're at Knockhill. This is your home circuit. Shane, this is a visit for you. You've been here once or twice before. But what I'd like to do is hear your opinions on, you know, the differences between what you do and just what happens out there on the track when you're absolutely on the limit. Gordon, first you.
I guess there'll be a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities as well between the two, because both require maximum commitment. They require a hell of a lot of precision. And to be absolutely on top of your game, it does require a real kind of finesse and a deft touch. And I mean, around here at Knockhill, it really is like a roller coaster ride. I know what it's like trying to keep a touring car going forward, but for these guys who have got the thing sliding about sideways at 100 miles an hour, it must be a totally different thing. So, you know, maximum respect to these guys. I was down watching a little bit earlier on at the first corner, and the angles they can get the car at is just, you know, it is phenomenal. So, yeah. It's about precision, aggression, you know, technique, and I guess both, you know, require quite a lot of that.
I think for me, I've had, I suppose, the luck in venturing through both sides of the motorsport industry. I've been here many times racing GTs back in kind of 2002, 3, 4 thereabouts. Loved the circuit, always ran well here, simply because Ian, one of your good instructors, he was the first guy to ever take me around, showed me where I need to point the car and how I needed to go, and that given weekend I had a first on the podium and stuff, and so every time I've come here I've always felt good. But without a shadow of a doubt, the first blind entry we have as the initiation, it is completely blind. We cannot see an apex, as obviously a race car will get on the brakes to try and slow it down to turn in, where we're just on the handbrake to get a bit sideways to try and initiate and then find our clip point. So you're kind of doing a whole different array of things, from going sideways, forward and backwards as well at the same time, which is can be quite tricky and quite complicated. I know with touring car stuff, I think one thing I certainly miss as being a drifter now is actually having people around me. I know we do twin drifting, but actually kind of banging doors, and not, I know, you know, boys don't really bang doors and it's all clean racing, of course. But no, I do miss that. I do miss that bit of a challenge, seeing the guy ahead of you, trying to claw in that, you know, half a second and quarter of a second, and just, you know, seeing him come closer and closer, and then rubbing doors and hopefully getting a pass. I mean, I miss that adrenaline rush. That's a big thing now. I'd probably like to get back to, not perhaps touring car level, but maybe back into GTs or something.
I'm just kind of sitting chuckling to myself here, because watching these guys, and you know, these guys get round of applause and points for going sideways, and I just get up in the team when I get sideways. So, you know, but I guess, you know, both are really similar. You know, that, you know, watching these guys take off down towards the first corner, they've got that first, you know, effectively as a half a lap section to complete their run and to get the, you know, the best possible outcome. It's kind of similar in a touring car as well, because everything happens in that first, you know, first half a lap of a race. So you've got to be bang on it from, you know, for us, you know, as soon as the lights go out, but from the guys as soon as the run starts. But, you know, I like the drifting. I think it's a real, you know, it's a different skill, and I'm all up for kind of learning different skills, you know, whether it's bikes, you know, on track, trials bikes, you know, rallying, you know, drifting. It's, you know, touring cars is a very kind of specific skill. It's not the easiest thing to jump into, and watching what these guys are doing in the drifting, I can see it's exactly the same for these guys as well. It's a very specific skill, you know.
No, that's definitely a fair point. I think for say, a drifter, or even when you see back in the day the rally boys trying to get into the likes of touring car, and how they can't drive them because you have to be so smooth, so precise. If you're skilled enough, I guess, to learn different disciplines, then obviously you'll do well in all motorsports. But that's the hardest thing, is to transition really from one to the other, I think.
Yeah, it'll be great to come race in Scotland again. You know, I only obviously get to do it once a year, so you know, hopefully I get a clean run. I'm, you know, as I said, watching these guys with interest, but hopefully won't be repeating what they're doing on the 4th of September.